Hey, welcome back, friend. If you're new here, my name is Danny Dumas, and this is the Earn Your Title podcast. My goal with this podcast is to help men earn the title of husband, father, and leader, and want you to be great at that. Today, I have something I haven't done before. I've really been getting into trying to figure out how AI can interact with my life and your life. And when I hear these experts, a lot of them say you make a mistake when you ask AI to create everything in your life. Like if you were in college right now and you were asking it to write a 5,000 word paper, you're kind of defeating the point of writing the paper, digesting the information and spitting it back out. But what they do suggest, and this is what I did, and I'm going to do this, I think for the next, maybe the next 3 episodes, is I asked it questions, and now I'm going to answer the questions, or asked it to ask me questions. I guess that's the best way to put it. And I'm going to answer, and give my take on this. And I think that's where AI is really good, is an interaction, conversation. You ask a question, it asks a question, and you had to try to have a conversation with it. So it was interesting. The question I asked was, what are the biggest challenges men experience in relationships? I thought it would come back with 2 or 3 top ones, and it came back with 8. So I think it's obvious that being in a marriage, being in a relationship is challenging. And it came up with 8 topics, and I'm going to give you my take on 7 of the 8 of these. One of them, I'll be honest with you, I don't think I have a lot to add to it, and I'll explain why when I get to that one. So, the first one, communication breakdown. Communication in general is always really hard to do. And one of the ways that I have attempted to improve my relationship with my wife is to understand how she needs to hear things. Because it's very interesting with communication. You can think you're so clear and you're so precise. And if you ever have a working relationship where you're constantly communicating, you realize how often that fails. I was just recently had a conversation with a new captain. He's been a captain for a couple months now. And he was talking about how he was having a challenge with somebody. He's like, I told him what I wanted him to do. And I said, do you understand? And then I came back the next day and he had done it completely wrong. And I said, the captain's name is Damon. I'm like, Damon, you realize where you messed up? He's like, where did I mess up? He's like, you said, do you understand? Well, of course he understands what he thinks you think that he thinks, which is that he understood what you thought. So you can't say, do you understand? You have to say, so when I said that, say back what you think I said. And that's, just in general communication, you have to close the loop. When you send the information out, you want it to come back to you. But I've found that when I have communications with my wife, I need to understand where she's coming from, her knowledge base, and then I have to have extreme patience to make sure that I am going above and beyond. And with all these things, all the 8 problems that we're going to deal with, all the 8 challenges, I am going to focus on what I can do and what you can do. Because ultimately, I could say, I just want my wife to be a better listener, or I want her to talk like me. Because I've had her tell me things, I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. And she gets frustrated. So then I'm like, well, how could I communicate that I don't understand? Because, one, my wife, her second language is English. So that, there's a challenge there. And 2, she's a girl, and girls just speak differently than guys. And so I think the way I would answer this question is, how do I overcome the challenge of communication breakdown? Is that I realize that I'm going to be misunderstood. Like I just go into a conversation with my wife, with my kids, pretty much with everybody, assuming that the first time I say what I'm going to say, they're not going to understand it. So I need to ask questions to confirm that they do understand what I'm saying. And then if they don't, I might need to say it a different way. I know I've had the experience where I'm like, I don't understand. And then someone says the exact same thing. I'm like, I don't understand what that is. I don't understand the words you're using. And they'll just say the same thing. I'm like, could you tell me like I'm a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old? Like I have to say other words. And while that is frustrating, what I've decided is I'm going to take responsibility for what I can do. If that means asking questions, if that means being humble and saying, maybe I should, have you ever been in a meeting where someone throws out like an acronym and you don't know what it means, and you realize, man, I've been here too long not to know what that means, so you just sit there and hopefully someone else asks, you don't want to seem stupid. Don't do that. Raise your hand, be bold, have some courage, and say, I don't understand. Can you refresh my mind on what, CPR means, cardiopulmonary resuscitation? Get out there and have courage to maybe look dumb To talk to your wife and when you don't understand, say, I don't understand what you're saying. Could you repeat it? Could you say it a different way? And that, you take possession of communication. I think that's important. So that's one. Communication breakdown. Financial disagreements. This is a tough one. Now, every marriage is going to have this. There's a podcast I like to listen to. It's The Ramsey Show with Dave Ramsey. And I believe I'm a real big fan of his for the most part. I think, to the extreme levels of some of the things he says, I think there's a little room for debt. I'm going to be honest. So besides that, it's awesome hearing people call in and just the conflict, just the pure conflict they have with their wife over all kinds of things. And they spend too much. They don't spend enough, this or that. And what I've had to realize with my wife is that my wife is a saver in general, and I'm a spender. And my wife gets severe anxiety, and I don't use that word lightly. She gets anxious when we have money conversations. And I think this goes towards her past. I think this is something deep down inside her. So I've had to limit the interactions that we have about money. So what we do, I use an app, a budgeting app called YNAB, YNAB. You need a budget. It's what it stands for. And I don't expect her to do anything with it, but once a week on a Sunday, we sit down and say, hey, look, we spent, we have $200 in the clothing bucket, and we've spent $150. That just kind of tunes her mind up for the rest of the week. Oh, we have another $50 to spend. And it can be frustrating. The saving part for me can be frustrating. I remember 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago, we sold a house and we hadn't moved into the next one yet. So the cash from the sale of the house was in our bank account. The most money I've ever had in my bank account to date. And she called me and she's at Goodwill. She said, I found some bathing suits for the kids. They're $10. Can I buy them? And at that moment, I had extreme frustration. I'm like, are you serious? Did you look in our bank account? We have more money than we've ever had in our entire life, and you're calling me, and I don't usually bother me, but you're interrupting my day, asking me that something that's just trivial. Just buy it. The kids and like my standing order is, if the kids need it, buy it. But this is where I go back to taking responsibility for myself. What my wife is doing is showing me respect. She's showing me the respect. I make the majority of the money. She obviously has a full-time job, and she supports us a lot in the household and with work and putting our kids through school and all that. But I make the majority of the money, and I physically do the process of paying it. And what I need to reset my mind, instead of going, just buy the $10 shorts, like, stop. Why do I have to be involved with this? I don't want this decision fatigue. I have to look at that, take possession, go, she is showing me respect by not wanting to spend too much money. And that's a good thing. So I think you need to get a plan with your wife. And it doesn't have to be like, if you're a nerd, man, put away the spreadsheets. If she's not the nerd, she does not want to see a spreadsheet. She might need some simple rules of when we can, like what kind of, maybe it's a $50 limit. Anything over $50, let's have a conversation. Maybe it's $100. One thing I know my wife really enjoys is when I go to the bank and let's say we have, $1,000 for the grocery bill for the month. My first paycheck, I would get $500. I put it in an envelope and I hand it to her, said, this is for groceries. And she writes groceries on it. Then I go and in the second paycheck of the month, here's the next $500 groceries. And that takes up I think that really de-stresses her life, because she can go, oh, I looked in the budget, literally the envelope, and go, hey, there's money. I can do this. So I don't know what it is for you, but be the man of the house, make some decisions, and find out a system that works. Sticking your head in the sand, maybe it's the total opposite. Maybe your wife does everything. She pays the bills. You just show up here, you hand her your paycheck. That's not fair to her either. It is not fair to put 100% of the burden on her. You guys have to be a team. If you listen to the Ramsey Show, it's nonstop, these conflicts. The ones that do great go together. Now, they're both not driving the car, right? One's the passenger, one's the driver. But they're both in the car together. And the ones that fail, it'll be a wife going, I didn't realize, but my husband got us into $100,000 in credit card debt. I had no idea. Well, that's not fair to your husband that you went that long with no interaction and you just stuck your head in the sand and hoped it'd all be good. That's not fair to your husband. And husbands, don't do that with your wife. You need to be interactive. You have to have a plan. You have to continue to execute the plan, and you take possession of implementing that plan. Even if the plan is, sweetheart, you're the accountant, write the spreadsheet, pay the bills once a week, once a month. At some point, we're going to get together and see where we're at, where we're going. And I think it's really important. They say money problems are the second leading cause of divorce. And they say the first cause of divorce is marriage. So it's way up there with important things to get right. Number 3, intimacy issues. These are both emotional and physical. When it comes to the physical nature, one thing I think you have to realize is that a guy's need and a girl's need are going to be different, and you're probably not going to be at the same level of what you want for physical intimacy. You also have to realize that both of you are aging, and those needs are going to change, and it's not going to be like it was in your 20s. And you have to be okay with that. But the other thing you have to be okay with is telling your wife what you want and what you need. It is so unfair to have these unspoken contracts that are just silent. And in your head, like, well, this is the way it should be. And you never vocalize that towards your wife. Now, I do understand there's a time and a place where you need to go get counseling because you're on one side and she's on the other, and there's just nothing happening, and that's not healthy. You show me a relationship with no physical intimacy, and I'll show you one that is on its way to failure. I don't see how you could avoid failure in a relationship like that unless both of you just don't want that. But if one does and one doesn't, one of them, the one that does is probably going to go find it somewhere else, and that's going to destroy the marriage. Is that right? Absolutely not. You've made a commitment that that's not right? If your wife doesn't want to have sex with you, it's not right. But you have to take the responsibility to figure out why. Is it a physical need? Is there something going on chemically? Is it a lack of sleep? Is it stress? And then systematically try to remove those things for your spouse, or help, or go get counseling, or go get medication. But you can't just get frustrated. Nothing happens from pure frustration. And one of the things I think on the husband-wife balance of intimacy is the emotional side. I think men, we get hung up on the physical side, and that's what we want. Well, more than likely, your wife wants the emotional side too. She wants you to date her. When was the last time you bought some flowers? When was the last time you said, you know what, I'm going to treat my wife like I'm meeting her for the first time today, and I'm going to try to make a good impression? When was the last time, you didn't fart in front of her when you could have? As silly as that sounds, and we can get, obviously this is your closest relationship you'll ever have, and those types of things can happen. But dude, that's not romantic. Burping and farting is not, the dream that your wife is living. And now maybe you have that relationship and it's all good. But what if you could just say, we haven't been physically intimate. Maybe it's because I haven't been emotionally intimate, and I'm going to stop doing inappropriate things in front of my wife. Think about that. When it goes to the emotional intimacy, date your wife. Think of things like, what would make my wife happy today? And that might, maybe it's not even dating. Maybe you really know what would make her happy is if she came home on a Saturday after being out with her friends and the house was clean. You want to talk about a way to increase your physical intimacy? Have a clean house. A guy can focus on one thing. A girl thinks about all the things. And when things are out of place, when things aren't the way they need to be, she can't focus on the one thing you want her to focus on. It's, a dirty house is a dirty mind to her. It's a cluttered mind. And so by doing some things like vacuuming can be foreplay. Clean dishes, the dishes put away can be a route towards physical intimacy, because that's showing emotional intimacy. You're doing something for somebody else, figuring out their love language. I could buy my wife gifts until I'm blue in the face, and it does nothing for her emotionally. She would enjoy it. She wouldn't be upset that I did that. Nothing for her emotionally, but quality time together, words of affirmation, things like that. Learn that from your wife, and you can increase both the physical and emotional intimacy. Number 4. And this is the one, thankfully, I don't have a lot on this. It's trust and infidelity issues. And so I'll just talk to the guys that are having this, but man, I am sorry. this is a tough one. I fully 100% trust my wife. I have no doubts whatsoever she's going to be faithful, and I hope that I've lived a life that she believes that in me. So if you're dealing with these trust issues, I don't have a lot of it. I don't know how you come back from finding out that your wife is cheating on you. I do know it's possible. I do know guys that have fulfilling relationships. I know it's a long process. And guys, if you've messed up and you were unfaithful to your wife, she doesn't owe you anything. She doesn't owe you forgiveness. Forgiveness is earned over a really, really long time. You know, my son had an issue at school where he lost a little bit of trust. And the conversation we had, he was very upset, and I was very thankful that he was very upset about this, you know, just disappointed in himself. And I said, hey, bud, for a long, long time, you were putting in quarters, you know, over and over and over, quarters. You just withdrew $10. And because you had quarters in there, people are going to believe you because you didn't go bankrupt, right? You didn't go into the hole. But it's going to take a lot more quarters to get back to where you're at. And guys, you know, physical or emotional cheating is not $10. It's thousands of dollars. And that can take years of plugging back into. So I would say if this is you and you want to make the relationship work, you can do it. It's possible. But you're going to have to, one, just let it take time. You cannot rush this. Two, you got to put in some quarters. You know, I mean, you may need to make some big deposits because you took a huge withdrawal. And if it's the other way around, realize that your emotions are valid. One of the things you can do is you can go back and see where this went wrong. Maybe it was a lack of physical intimacy. Maybe it was a lack of emotional intimacy. See what you could do to improve your relationship if you want it to work, and then give yourself some time to heal. And it is possible. I wish I had some more good stuff from you from past experience. I married a good woman, and I'm so thankful for that. If you're a young guy and you're in a relationship and that person cheats on you, go get another relationship if you're not married. You know, like I guess that would be my advice for the young men. Find a good one and stick with her. It's worth it. Number 5, differing expectations and unrealistic ideals. This happens. I don't think you can avoid this. As men, if you grew up and you had your mother in your house, you have a set idea of how a wife would treat their husband. Your wife, if she had a father in the house, she has a set idea of how a father should treat a wife or a husband should treat a wife. Those are going to be different, more than likely. And it is not fair for you to expect your wife to be like your mom. Just like you wouldn't want her to think that you're going to be like her dad. The best way to get around this, and the thing that I've had to express with my wife and she's had to express with me, is just to be honest about, why do you want me to do this? Try to understand seek first to understand. And then if you do have an expectation, say it out loud. The unconscious, the secret contracts that you have, like, well, I cut the grass, therefore you must put away the laundry. If you've never discussed that, and I think that's a totally fine contract to have. Like me and my wife, that's kind of the setup. Today it was 98 degrees out. I waited till it got a little dark. It was 94, and I went and cut the grass. And she puts away the laundry. But we've had that conversation. She's not putting away the laundry because that's what my mom did. I just expect her to do that. It's because this is how we had a plan, and we're a team. Right? A team runs the same play. If you ever watch football and the receiver is not linked up with the quarterback, the play doesn't work. So you guys need to have the same game plan. You need to have the same direction. And that just comes back to communication and expressing what you think is important. Number 6, life transitions and stresses. Give your partner some grace with something's going on in your life. And this can be micro changes, like it's summertime, the kids are going back to school. Just assume that for a week your wife is going to be stressed out and won't be the same type of person she normally is the other 51 weeks out of the year. You move. Expect for the chaos and maybe the lack of physical intimacy to happen. It's interesting. I love to travel. It's one of my favorite things to do. And my wife, she loves to be places, but she does not enjoy traveling, especially flying. Like I've gone to the point where I tried to surprise her with a trip that I wasn't going to tell her till like 2 days before, because she gets stressed out with the idea of flying. So I just wasn't going to tell her. I'm like, hey, tomorrow we're leaving. We're going to Las Vegas, and you can only stress out for one day. Like, I thought that would benefit me. Unfortunately, we have a shared calendar, and it popped up on the calendar. And she's like, are you going to Las Vegas? I'm like, yes, and so are you. Let the stressing begin. I think as a man, we just need to realize that changes in life are going to cause that. And that's a good, it was a good thing. We're going on a vacation. It still causes stress. And I'm a fairly laid back dude, and that can annoy me a little bit and bother me. Like, we're going on vacation. Why are you stressing out? Is because change creates stress. It just does. And just accept it. It's going to be okay. Just change creates stress. Stress makes people act different than they normally do. Give your spouse some grace. Number 7, the lack of appreciation and taking each other for granted. This is definitely something that happened. Like, me and my wife, I would say, are in a good place right now with this aspect of our life and our relationship. But when all our kids are younger, it's so easy to take advantage, take for granted what your other spouse is doing because you're in survival mode. Man, if your wife is a stay-at-home mom and you come home, even if you don't feel like it, even if like you assume because of, gender roles or because your mom, was really good at it, if the house is even remotely clean, wow, the house looks so good. I don't know how you do that with these crazy kids. She cooked dinner and it's remotely edible, thank you so much for this. You have to appreciate your wife, and you have to say it out loud. And it's just like a shower. You wouldn't take a shower one time. Appreciation doesn't happen by just saying one time, like, I remember when we got married, I told you I loved you 20 years ago. That doesn't work. It's daily. If you're not appreciating, loving on them, and using their love language, whatever that is, gifts, words of affirmation, physical touch, if you're not doing that on a daily basis, they're going to feel left for granted, and that is bad. You do not want that. So just be consistent and make it a habit. And number 8, this is the last one. It's being selfish. There's a time for being selfish, and I've had podcasts just about that. As a man, I think you need to have time alone. I think you need to have time away with guy friends. That's important. Golf trips are important. A weekly golf outing is important. But if you never think about your wife, like, oh, I wonder if she would like to get away and do something on her own, you're being selfish. Your wife needs things, and sometimes that is you to do the thing that you don't want to do. It's on a Saturday, you normally go play golf, and your little girl has gymnastics, and your wife always goes. Give her the Saturday off. Go back, like, what would I do if we were dating? The dating time is the best time. It's an awesome time because you're both trying really hard to impress the other person. And it's like, man, what a good person. They're bringing me flowers and they're doing this. And at some point that goes away. And it's like, oh, I'm going to do this because I make the money. I'm going to have the nice car because I make the money. I'm going to, all these selfish ideas are just, it's not what love is. Love is the ultimate, compromise where I want what's best for you and that makes me feel good. So stop being selfish most of the time. I think sometimes you got to get away, but, make sure your wife's needs are being met. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed my take on these things. And again, I'm not a professional. I'm not a counselor. I've been married for 20 years and I think I have a good relationship. And I'm keep trying. I'm going to keep messing up, and I will let you know as I mess up. So I've got 2 more. We're going to do the challenges of raising kids. And then I think I'm going to do something like the health challenges or the habit challenges all men face. So fitness, finance, things like that. If you've enjoyed this, I would love for you to give me a review. I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary. I don't have a ton of reviews on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever. So if you could leave me a review, just like go there right now so you don't forget, I would really appreciate it. Again, my name is Danny Dumas. This is the Earn Your Title Podcast, and I will talk to you later. Bye.